Hello, everybody, and welcome to. Hello, Duane. Welcome to the inaugural If Only You'd Been Faster, probably podcast. We'll see how this goes. I am Goober, who you probably all know. I'm what? Red Faction guy, speedrun guy. I'm sure if you're watching this, you know me. And joining me here, we have Mr. Duane Jones and Mr. Intharth. So I will get them to introduce themselves now.
What up? I'm Duane Jones. I used to speedrun this game until people did it better, and now I just hang out.
What up? I am Intharth. I am people that did it better, and I still hang out. And
Hey,
that's how we do it.
I occasionally did it better, but usually did it worse.
But you did it better than Duane, and that's what matters, right? Exactly.
Yes.
There we
Wouldn't have
go.
been possible to do it better if I hadn't done it first.
Yes, that is true. So yeah, we don't really know exactly how this is going to go. So we're basically going to do a chat session. We've done a bunch of commentaries. They've all been well received. And so we're gonna kind of keep going with that formula. The first episode, we're gonna talk about some Red Faction stuff. Future episodes, we're assuming that they happen. We're gonna talk about other stuff, but let's talk about Red Faction for now. So first things first, I'm gonna get us going here. Duane, tell us about your journey to Red Faction speedrunning and why you are the most important person in the Red Faction speedrun universe.
I'm only
Allegedly.
halfway kidding when you say that because this was like what, circa 2016, Goober, right?
2015, I think you said, right?
Was it
2015, maybe
2015?
late 2015, early 2016, something like that. Yeah.
I think
Yeah, late
Natalie's
2015.
post is 2015, so yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't until 2016 that it got approved on SDA, which is way better than SRC. And by that, I'm talking about speeddemosarchive.com, which only hosts high quality speedruns and does not discriminate when it comes to segmented or RTA runs. So fuck people that discriminate against segmented runs, get fucking bent. Sorry, I don't
Reset.
mean to be
Reset.
this angry.
You're coming out.
Reset.
You're coming out swinging here. Yeah.
This just Intharth and I pre-show we were arguing about
Pre-show. And
we were
arguing's not the
arguing
right
about
word. We were discussing.
segmented stuff. But I had previously done a speed run of Metro 2033, and at this point, I was post grad school, living with my father, working random odd jobs, whether it was like in a kitchen or delivering pizza, and I played a lot of video games. And at some point, picked up Red Faction on Steam. It was a game that I had played through on PlayStation 2 back in the day. I played through it, or maybe got like halfway through it, and was like, I wonder if there's any speed runs for this game. I had been like not necessarily like a fan of speed runs, but having seen Quake Done Quick and Quake Done Quicker back in the day, having seen Half-Life in a half an hour, just as being a citizen of the internet, I knew what speed runs were. And when I saw a game as simple as Red Faction, because that a game that looked like it didn't have too much tech, similar to Metro 2033 at the time. I was
Now it
like,
does.
yeah, I was like, I could play this game
No tech?
and
This
and
is
it could
strange
have,
to me.
yeah, it was very, there were games that looked really approachable and like fun because there were games I really enjoyed. And I looked around on YouTube and found a couple of speed runs from Neo Killer and, well, I'll never know how to pronounce his name,
Magnod.
Magnude,
Magnod.
Magnod.
There you go.
And I just watched those, and then I tried to do what they did faster and found like a couple of little things here and there. But then the biggest thing that changed was the water boost. And can somebody tell Goober or Intharth, tell them like what the water boost like is?
Goober's the man for that.
Yeah. So okay. So back then, there was a patch that everyone used to play Red Faction called Pure Faction, which was a multiplayer focused patch. Fixed a bunch of issues with multiplayer. Yeah, mainly just multiplayer. I'm not even sure if the person who made Pure Faction ever played the single player. So any benefits that it brought to the single player were completely coincidental. But anyway, one of the oldest glitches in multiplayer, one of the oldest frustrations that everybody had was the fact that you could never jump out of the fucking water in any maps. So like you'd put a pool or like whatever in your map, and then no one could ever jump out of it. You just get stuck if your frame rate was above like 60. And so the developer of Pure Faction, Trotsky, he had implemented a fix for that, which basically just gave you a little bit of a boost when you tried to jump out of water. It just like shoved you up a little bit, almost like a jump pad, not exactly, but similar. And I mean, that worked perfectly fine for multiplayer. Again, I'm not sure he actually ever played the single player, so I doubt he knew the impact that that had on the single player. But Mr. Duane Jones here comes along and discovers that the side effect of that is that if you save the game right when you're about to jump into the water and then load, that boost gets applied immediately when you load the game, so you get flung back up out of the water. Which is a really, really, really cool piece of tech. And it annoys me so much to this day that it was a bug introduced by that patch, not in the base game, so we can't use it. I would love to be able to use that in current runs.
I mean, I'm chilling. I don't need it. I'm chilling.
Right, and now it's old news and it doesn't like actually matter. But at the time, for a game that
patch anymore.
Yeah.
Right, and for anybody that doesn't know, the reason they were using like this patch was because on modern hardware, and Goober, correct me if I'm wrong, but on modern hardware, the game just like doesn't run right. There's certain frame rate issues that like. There's a part that if you go on the Steam forums for Red Faction, you'll find a lot of people, or if you just Google like Red Faction sub explodes. There's a part in the game where you're supposed to use a vehicle. Yeah, go ahead.
It's the most common issue reported on the Red Faction Steam forums. Like, you could go one page and there will be 3 posts. My submarine is exploding. What the hell? And eventually you have to point them to these patches, but like luckily we now have a pinned patch which just tells them the most up-to-date patch, and we just tell them how to download.
I'm very happy that is pinned on the official forums now. I mean, some people still miss it, but like before that was pinned on the official forums, it was to the point where like every week or so I was going through the Steam reviews and just commenting on like the probably half a dozen per week reviews with people complaining about the submarine exploding. Just be like, here's a patch, here's a patch, here's a patch, here's a patch.
10 years ago, please use Pure Faction. Please use Pure Faction. Now it's please use Death Faction. Either way, and that's like the other things is like also the multiplayer, the side effects as well, all those issues with multiplayer, and basically, even if Pure Faction wasn't intended as a single player improvement, the side effects was that you could manually change the frame rate and things so that the side effects that did upset single player were avoidable with Pure Faction, even if you had to use console commands sometimes to tweak it.
Yeah. So I had downloaded the Pure Faction patch to make the single player playable, to get past the big bug that everyone has a problem with, where a lot of people have a problem with on modern hardware. You get to a point in the game where you're supposed to commandeer this submarine to get to the next part of a map, but for some reason on higher frame rates or whatever, the submarine, when you like enter the room or lower to the water, it just explodes.
It's when you drop it off the crane, but also just to not to cut you off, but just to point out, like it wasn't just that issue back then. You actually still need to limit your frame rate even with Pure Faction to fix that problem. But like most modern systems can't even launch the official version of the game. Like the last official patch pre-Steam was version 1.2. That was released in, if I remember correctly, December 2001. And It hasn't worked properly on any system running anything greater than XP. So you would have needed a patch even without that submarine explosion problem.
Yeah,
even
we needed a patch to play the game.
I was just saying, without those things, there's all the memory leaks and everything as well that are bundled in without all that as well.
So I'm going along. I'm playing this game, trying to find like what I can do, like little bits to do better. And I liked speedrunning games that didn't have a lot of tech because I'm old. I have a short attention span. I like doing segmented runs because I can take my time and have fun. And I noticed that in one of these rooms where you're supposed to cross a large chasm that has a pool of water underneath it, I kept trying to, like, I would just jump over it and then land in, I would jump, not jump over it, I would jump, I would land in the water and then move out of the water. And so I was saving as I landed in the water because to splice segments together. It'd be like, okay, so this is as far as I can get with this jump, save, and then from there be like, okay, start jumping out of the water and move across the water. But I found that as I saved, when I loaded the game, like Goober said, all of a sudden my character was getting rocketed out of the water at an immense rate of speed. And I took a clip, I made some clips of it with like fraps.
Oh, that is going back.
Yeah. And I don't even know what I typed in, like Red Faction forum or Red Faction speedruns or something, and found faction files. Maybe that's where who had hosted the Pure Faction patch, and found their forums. Like, not a forum guy at all, but I just posted like, yo, has anybody ever tried to speedrun this game besides these other two nerds on YouTube? Yeah. And I posted that video. I'm like, I think I found something that's kind of cool. And that was it. Like within like 48 hours, through the grace of being like a hopefully like non-degenerate person that was just like asking questions that came out of nowhere, I was able to get in touch with the people who were running faction files at the time, which was Goober and Nick and Natalie at the time. And they were all just like, hey, this looks cool. We're interested in what you're doing. We'll
Oh, he's chipping. He's chipping.
Yeah, Duane's internet connection is
saying fuck you. I'll pitch in. I got him. So that was when everyone
even played multiplayer. These are like,
I think he's back.
I'm back. Where did I cut off?
You got in touch with the people who run faction files. Then
48 hours later.
Yeah, 48 hours later, and then you started roboting.
Okay, and like within like 48 hours, I was like talking to you guys on like what it was at the time, TeamSpeak or Vent, just being like,
I think it was Ventrilo at that point.
Yeah, I'm sitting, and at this point, I think I was back in the town I went to college in. My computer was set up on the kitchen table of my friend's apartment, where I was like finishing up my master's thesis presentation, like notes, and he was out of town because his brother had just died, and like I was drunk in his apartment in this other town, just like, hey, what's up, guys? I found this thing in Red Faction. And it just the everything just lined up right, you know, like you guys were like, it might have been the right night that you were guys like, oh, this sounds kind of cool, rather than being like, this guy sounds like a weirdo.
I mean, I'm not going to say you didn't sound like a weirdo, but like up to that point, I'm not going to give you that. Up to that point, like our primary focus had just been multiplayer. Like I think personally, I played the single player back when the game first came out, but other than that, like I had jumped through a couple of maps every now and again, but I didn't know what it was all about. I mean, until I started helping you with the speedrun, I didn't remember where to go. So like we never really had any.
I still don't remember where to go.
No, I do. Duane doesn't.
Oh well, fair, definitely fair.
But no, I mean, like all of our experience, at least for the most part, was all in the multiplayer. So like it was kind of, and it's interesting because I had talked to, I can't remember if it was Nick or Natalie or both, a couple of months before that, and we had just been like, so we do everything else related to Red Faction. What don't we do? Like, what is kind of like uncharted territory? And speedrunning was one of the things that, like, none of us knew anything about speedrunning, but we knew that it existed. And I can't remember which one of us had said it, but one of us was just like, hey, you know, speedrunning. It would be cool if someone did a speedrun of this game at some point. And it was just kind of like, we don't have the experience. Like, we don't know anything about that. We can't do it. And then you just come along and you're like, hey, guys, I'm going to do this. So you were a vehicle for us to realize the thing that we didn't have the means to do ourselves.
At that point, did you know about Magnouts and Neokiller?
Yeah, they're the only reason I was able to speedrun the game at all, because I would watch their runs, and I think I might have commented on their YouTube videos or maybe sent them a message, but it wasn't like they didn't have, I don't know the words for it. They weren't like contactable. They were people that had Twitch channels, but they streamed either irregularly or hadn't streamed for months by the time I found their videos. They were just like, and even today, Goober, before the show, Intharth and I were talking about this. Have we ever talked to either of them? I know that like in all our videos we say like, hey, what's up? I feel like Neo Killer commented on something once, or like joined the Discord once.
I don't remember them joining the Discord. They may have commented on a YouTube video, but like, no, I mean, they're those names that I've heard everyone, well, you mostly, throw around since I've known you. But yeah, I've, at least as far as I know, I've never spoken with them.
Like when you and Nat and Nick were talking about speedruns and not knowing anything about it, had either of you three looked it up and seen Magnounds and Neo Killer's run?
I don't know if they did. I may have Googled for like Red Faction speedrun and saw that there were speedruns, maybe. I'm not actually sure. But like, I wouldn't have looked at who did them or made any effort to reach out to them or anything like that.
Fair enough.
And then from there, Goober and everybody else on Faction Files just started helping me out with segments, and like the idea, like I got able to get like certain tools for the game as far as like a VPP or something to remove the text when you saved and loaded the game, so that you could edit the segments together, and it would be accurate.
Sorry, not sorry for what we did to that afterwards with leaving the save and load text.
And I mean, no, it was purely an aesthetic thing, because I was making, this was before speedrun.com. I was making these runs for Speed Demos Archive, which has like much wonderfully maybe too stringent of requirements for runs, but like definitely not as garbage as like SRC's, like lots of games for SRC where it's like, just upload a Twitch VOD.
In fairness, SRC's moderators have changed a lot over the years. It's a much better now than it used to be. Much better.
Well, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, Duane, but like I think SDA had like admins who ran the whole site, whereas SRC has like, yes, they have site admins, but most of the day-to-day decisions with regard to running a games board are in the hands of the community members that moderate that board.
Yes.
Not site staff. They only really step in if someone's doing something like really stupid. So, or is completely inactive.
And to be also, like, SDA never claimed to be a record keeping site. They were a repository for like high quality, like AV quality runs with commentaries.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just gonna. I just remembered as you were talking about that, like when we were looking for like segmented strats and stuff for you to explore. There was one that I found, and I think it's the only one that any of us found that never got used ever. And I just remembered it, and it never got used because it's not really practical to use it. But in the area where you're coming up to like the bridge that retracts in Zoo, in like the ice caves area, there is a way. I remember finding this. There is a way to use a fusion, which you only have one of at that point, and an extremely precisely placed shot to geo a hole in the wall and then like duck around the trigger that retracts the bridge so you can just walk across.
Yes.
There is a way to do that, but I was only ever able to get it to work with the debug command on to show trigger bounding boxes, because like it's such a precise trick. It maybe it could be used in a segmented run at some point, maybe, but even then probably not, because the time that you'd waste going to get the fusion, you wouldn't save that much by not just doing the standard any percent strat to go across there. So, but yeah,
if you were given the fusion, you'd probably use it on the guards in the sanctum anyways.
Oh yeah, that too. That would save more time. But I mean,
which is totally necessary on Impossible, which is the only way to run the game.
Yeah, it's also totally necessary if you're planning on doing the blind K-Pec kill.
Well, let's briefly pivot a little bit, because we've talked about like Duane's involvement, and like Duane's involvement until recently was purely the Impossible running. So let's like the differences between easy and Impossible, and why there's such a huge difficulty swipe curve in the game. Because
because on Impossible, the enemies like do huge amounts of damage to you and are incredibly accurate and move faster and dodge your reticle, whereas on easy, the game is like a whole W simulator outside of the tech that eventually has been found, which makes the game more than a whole W simulator.
Like when you first came across the game, Duane, like you said, you were doing research. Did you consider running it on easy, or did you immediately go, okay, what's the hardest difficulty? Let's play that.
I immediately went, what's the hardest difficulty? Let's play it on that.
Fair enough.
Because there was, and this comes from the SDA mindset, the Speed Demos Archives mindset was, their philosophy in speedrunning, and it's still kind of mine, is that here's the types of speedrunning you can do. You can do RTAs or segmented. And then within those, and within whatever other subcategories you might create, as far as difficulty level, like a game's difficulty levels, you only would ever do the easiest or the hardest. Like doing something in the middle would be like was like, why would you do that? Only do the one that's the absolute fastest, or do the one that is the absolute hardest, and that's why it makes it like a different challenge to do. And doing stuff in the middle would be like, why do it?
And easy was never a consideration for you. You were just immediately, let's do the hardest one.
Right, because I only wanted to do segmented, so like, why not just do the hardest one? No one had done it. Like, no one had done it before. And so it just was like, I know I can do it faster than the current easy runs, so why not just take the time and yeah. I liked the process of doing it. I didn't really care about the outcome.
I gotta ask, when you decided to do that, did you know about the differences in the game? Like how
like the rail guns, all that shit.
Yeah, how different Impossible was from easy.
I knew that you were going to be more likely to get hit by like rails. I knew that the enemies generally were harder, but I did not like, there was a little bit of like, not regret, but even just trying to get through the first couple of maps of the game.
There's a lot of petty differences as the difficulty slides up.
Yeah, a lot of like the first 30 seconds of the game, if you're playing on Impossible, is literally just RNG of like, can I make it from the spawn point where the game starts through a pair of double doors with only getting hit either 0 times or 1 time. And you just have to keep doing that segment until you get hit once, because I don't think you ever get hit 0 times.
No, you definitely don't. And like so like ever since then we've done Impossible RTAs. Like Grant's done one, I've done one, Cindy did one, and the amount of times we get through the double doors with a slither of health is the higher percentage. Like we've never managed to avoid getting hit at least 3 times on the way up on that like first ramp on the way out.
Yeah, it's really hard. And like usually in most parts of the game, at least the later game, you can use kind of the conventional approach to a hard difficulty in a game, which is you go into a room and you kill everything as quickly as you can so that you don't take damage. Problem is, at the very start of Red Faction, one, you don't have a weapon until you get through those double doors, so you have to get through, well, either wait to get a baton, but it's a speedrun, you're not just going to sit around for 5 seconds to get that. So you have to, like, dart to the other end of the room, hope that you don't die, or, like, get down so low that you're about to die, so you even get the pistol. But even if you have the pistol, for some reason, specifically the pistol is so much less accurate on Impossible than it is on every other difficulty.
It's does it have a bigger spread RNG? Is that it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's some multiplier applied. I don't know what it is, but there's some multiplier applied based on difficulty, so that like the pistol, only the pistol, if you're on Impossible and you shoot it, it like goes on the ceiling and the floor, and like you can't predict where it's gonna go. Like it's a total crapshoot. On easy, it's way more accurate. So, like, you can't even use, the conventional approach of just walk in and kill everything until you get later in the game, because you're not going to. It's still RNG because the spread is so huge.
And that's another, like you're talking about, you can't just walk into a room and kill everyone. That's another petty difference, is ammo count, health pickup count. It's all reduced. It's all slaughtered. And I really do think that Impossible was Volition just being trolls back in 2001, basically. I think the difficulty was never intended to be a fully functional playthrough. It was more just to test your patience. But speedrunners are more autistic and more patient to deal with that, so here we are.
Yep.
I don't know if Volition ever even played Impossible, to be honest.
Well, Romero didn't play Impossible at all, Red Faction at all, so, there's that.
Yeah, true.
But after, so it was games had always been, and I didn't realize this for years. I had to go back in like some of the history of just like me and playing video games. Was the reason I started speedrunning was an attempt to make single player gaming social. I when I was in college, so like 2007 to 2012, I didn't really play video games a whole lot, and then the end of grad school, due to like social situations that I was in, I did not have a lot of friends in my physical proximity any longer, and I started playing League of Legends and a couple other online games, and I thought I wanted to play games, but really what I wanted to do was hang out with people. And so anytime I got into speedrunning a game, I always tried to like make it other people's problems. I wanted like, hey, somebody help me with this. Hey, somebody collaborate with me on this. And that's what I was able to find with like Goober and Nick and Nat, was some like people to hang out with and show clips of progress over, you know, the course of the months that I was working on it. And that has continued to be like my MO. I think did I do the Wolfenstein speed run before
Yeah, that
Red
was
Faction
before,
also?
that was before. So a funny story. You did that before your Red Faction run. We had done the commentary on your very first Impossible segmented run. I remember it was, I think it was me, Nick, Natalie, and maybe Mitty was on that as well. I
Yes,
think.
Mitty was there.
Yeah. So after that, like months after that, I looked at your YouTube channel for I think the first time. And I was like, wait, this guy, like months before I met him, had done this Wolfenstein commentary with these other people? Like, wait, you know other people?
Yeah.
And then I watched your commentary with this other guy of Wolfenstein, and it was honestly interesting to me to see your approach, like because you took a really similar approach to Red Faction speedrunning as you did to Wolfenstein speedrunning, and me as someone who didn't know anything about Wolfenstein, it was really interesting to see that, especially after I had already like contributed at least in some way, worked with you on finding skips and the commentary and all that kind of stuff to your Red Faction run. It was really interesting.
So let's get into like the next generation. Like what? Because I did the Impossible
What came
run
after that?
Yeah, Goober did a next. Like Goober has now done segmented runs of Impossible that are awesome. But
Well,
then after Goober and us, I found a bunch of stuff. Then the Intharth generation came around and
Oh
blew
no, no, no,
everything
no,
up.
no. There's an interim. There's an in between. There's surreal before me. But I wanted to just quickly highlight on the skips again, just real briefly, because between yours and Goober's, there was a couple more things found, wasn't there? Like I don't
Yes.
remember where you found the geothermal door, for example.
Yeah, that is a good question. You mean the original
The
geothermal?
10-minute save load segmented strat.
I had blanked that out.
I think it must have just been like a
door break strat.
It must have been somebody that was just like, oh, we found that like when you save load, you get pushed, right?
Or
Like,
it's the doors clip forward slightly if they're
If
movers.
I remember correctly what it was, and I apologize to anybody who's involved in this if my memory is wrong on this, but if I remember correctly, it was either Homard or me. I can't remember which one of us was like spamming quick save and quick load in the geothermal map for some reason. I can't remember what the reason was. And we noticed that I think it may have been he noticed or Homard noticed that that another door was moving slightly on every load, and then I think I noticed that the door that we needed to go through at the end of the map also was moving. I think that's what happened there. Something like it was me and Harmar were involved. I can't remember the exact order, but anyway, yeah. So we discovered that if you quick save and quick load on every load, a bunch of movers, a bunch of doors in that map, including the one that we need to get through to advance, move ahead like what 2 centimeters, like
Less than that.
a very 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 small amount on every single load. And then after you do it enough times, and I don't know what the cutoff is, but after you do it some amount of times, the door just kind of stops moving. But if you're up against the door, you start moving.
I think I think it may be similar to the save loads that we have nowadays, where you're clipping with the XY coordinate, and your character is just getting so far into it, and then eventually the door because I think the door disappears eventually as well. You're just through and you're gone.
I think you're right. I think it's something to do with the rounded position of you and probably the door in the save game file.
No one cares. Stories. No, give me stories.
Fair enough. Anyway, I think that's what it's about. So someone found that through some chain of events. But and I can remember a big discussion about like, how can we use this? Because like the ending door is clearly moving. So like, how can we use this at a run? We've got to be able to use it somehow. And I think we all kind of knew what the answer was, but no one wanted
segmented
to
run.
It.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's definitely segmented, but like I think we all kind of knew what was involved, and just no one wanted to admit it. I know I didn't, but it turned into, I think I did 2 or 3 segmented runs that used that
3 runs with it.
Yeah, and until we found like the proper out of bounds skips that we use now, that was the best way to do it in a segmented run. Totally not viable for an RTA run, but it involved using quick save and quick load like 890 times or something like that to get through the door, which every time I did it, I'd have to do it in 3 or 4 sessions because I'd be sitting there for 10 minutes spamming 2 keys. It would hurt your hand after a while. And I had to do it in a couple of different sessions, but that was one thing. That took, half hour, whatever. The big thing was in editing. And this Duane was nice enough to help me out for the first run and then refused for the second run. So I had to do it for the second run. And it was like literally 800 and something segments, having to go in and take 1 frame of each one and splice it together. And it looks really cool once it's edited, but God, does it suck to do. I can actually remember, and just the last story I have on this, I can actually remember back in 2019, I want to say 2018, 2019, something like that. I spent most of Christmas Day.
Yeah, it was 2019.
Yeah, there you go. I spent most of Christmas Day. On Christmas Eve, I had done the recordings of, like, I think I broke up into 4 sessions of doing this one skip to get through this one door, which in the recording is like, or in the produced video is like
1.5, 1.5 maybe. Like,
so I had spent the like hour recording that on Christmas Eve, and then on Christmas Day I spent, I'm gonna say 12 to 14 hours doing the editing for that one like 2 or 3 second section of that run.
No, it's Christmas like in Canada that you didn't do Christmas with family.
Well, no, I did stuff with family, and then I came home and did that for the rest of the day.
I'm just joshing. I'm just joshing with you.
It's rum and eggnog and editing speedruns. That's what we do there. But anyway, that sucked. That absolutely sucked. And for so long, I was putting off making another segmented run because I didn't want to have to do that again.
And here's the thing. You did 2019. You did that. You edited it together, and then you stopped. And that's when you asked, can anybody speed up the game? And that's when Hotshot came along. But we can get to that. But that was the last segmented run you were doing on Pure Faction.
Segment us, segment us right into Hotshot.
I can get us there, but real quick, Surreal. So Surreal's like the one name that I know. But there's a bunch of people that did Red Faction normal RTA runs, non-segmented runs on Pure Faction, and like the water boost showed up, the little vent chef skip showed up. I don't think anyone was doing the geo-wing into the wall at the time, but that may have been a Homard or a Goober strat from segmented that eventually wound up in this single-player RTA version.
There was also a different canyon tunnel back then that Duane was using before Homard found the one that we use now. But anyway, continue.
And I think Surreal started using the original one, and then that's when Homard found it. And then, so in the canyon, we're coming up to that in the video you're watching right now, but the canyon effectively had a ski lift or gondola, whatever you want to call it, went along the top of it. And we found out that in order to skip going all the way to the bottom of the map and all the way around and up to the top of it, we can just blow holes in the wall up the rock face and just skip the whole damn level. And it's the single biggest time save in the game. So there's 2 versions of that. One which is a little slower, a little further down the map, one which is closer. And then Surreal was like world recording after world recording Pure Faction as Homard and Goober would find new things, and then Surreal would do things that worked in RTA, and Homard would do the easy segmented run. And then it would be a case of what next? And then Rafal was working on Dash Faction in the background. And at the time, it was intended, I think it was supposed to be more grounded in reality overall, based on the normal Red Faction game without the Pure Faction updates, but it was still trying to make it work on modern hardware. So you would have memory leak solves, you would have sessions for multiplayer.
If I remember correctly, Rafal's objective with Dash Faction originally was to just kind of do more of an educational project, to make kind of like his own version of Pure Faction, kind of. It has since evolved way past that, and it's a much more advanced patch now than Pure Faction ever was. Pure Faction has been discontinued, and Pure Faction now, the website for Pure Faction recommends you go get Dash Faction, so times have changed. But back then, I think it was just kind of his attempt to make like his own Pure Faction light kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there was one thing that I wanted to say right before we get to Hot Shot. And that was Danil, I think that's how you pronounce their name. Yep. And if I remember correctly, they're Ukrainian. And they had done a segmented run on Easy, and they had found the spawn error skips for cutscenes.
Oh, right. This is Pure Faction as well, because that doesn't work in Dash
Spawn
Faction.
errors, yes.
So, yeah. You go for it,
Yeah, no, so I was just going to... So spawn errors, we think, are because of another thing that was fixed in Pure Faction for multiplayer, that we think that's what caused it. But anyway, effectively, if you save the game at a point where your player position is invalid, this is a very, 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 very light explanation of this, but essentially if you save the game at a point where your player position is invalid and then you load that, the game doesn't know where to put you, so it spawns a new entity and gives you that entity. And so when it comes to cutscenes, that had the effect, and this is what Daniel found, is that if you spammed the quick save button right when a cutscene was about to play, if you got lucky enough, and it was a frame perfect thing, absolutely frame perfect. If you got lucky enough to hit the quick save key just as the cutscene started, and then load that save game file, it would respawn you at the origin position, the player start position in that level, and skip the cutscene entirely. And so that was huge, absolutely huge, in skipping the Griffin cutscene and the Trash Bot cutscene, and a bunch of... Yeah, no, we couldn't skip the KPEC one for really technical reasons.
For me. But the Med Labs one or the Inner Sanctum one?
Right. The Med Labs one you could, just not the KPEC dev cutscene. That crashed the game because of some really complicated thing that I only barely understand after Rafal explained it. But anyway, you could skip all the other cutscenes, and that was huge, because that single-handedly cut 4 minutes out of the run?
Yeah.
But again, it was segmented only because it was frame perfect. Nowadays, we can press the Dash Faction button to skip the cutscene.
If I recall, there was maybe one or two that Surreal was able to do before Pure Faction was no longer used. I think he did. Trashbot. He did skip that one, and I don't know if he did admin, but I think he did Med Labs, and I think that's it. I think at the time, because the side effect of skipping cutscenes was you lost all your ammo, so I think at the time, a different choice, once maybe you worked out why the KPEC one was skippable or how it would work, I think the choice was, do I skip the cutscene or do I skip the canyon? And that was a big choice right at the end of Pure Faction, right when Surreal was starting to wind down.
Yeah, because, you're right. You when you respawn after the spawn error, you go to 100 health, 100 armor, and you spawn with only a pistol. You lose all your ammo, you lose all your weapons. You're essentially a new player entity. So the rocket launcher ammo that you needed for the canyon tunnel, you didn't have that. So I can remember back then we were doing this thing where we skipped the Trashbot cutscene, and then before we went into Med Labs after that, we went up above the Trashbot to get the rocket ammo, and then after the cutscene, and then went through Med Labs and stuff. And that was because you needed that ammo.
And at the time, I think you could pick up enough rocket ammo through the caverns that you could skip Med Labs RTA and pick up all the rockets throughout the caverns and zoo to like give yourself enough rockets to do the canyon tunnel again. That's why you didn't skip the Capex one.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so like by this point in time, you had two sort of sequences of runners. You had like the pure faction RTA, you had the pure faction segmented, and like Duane and Goober, you guys were just the impossibles. You guys had done that. No one has ever done well, I don't know if Grant done it. Maybe he did. I can't remember. But no one's done impossible segmented since. And so that geothermal door exists in the final cut, right? So that's a fun fact.
Yeah.
And then you had the pure faction 90% runners, which is Surreal, Stingray. I can't remember everybody's names off the top of my head, but there was a good amount of people. And then I started speedrunning the PlayStation version. Now at the time, no one had done the PlayStation run. No one cared. The loads are a nightmare. Like I don't know, Duane, if you've seen them, but on PC, loading is like that. It's like a split second, right?
Yeah,
on
I've definitely seen the loads. I don't remember seeing them though.
But so it actually pops up a little bar on the screen, and you can watch the bar as it counts up, and it's like 3 to 5 seconds, or it could be 6 to 8 seconds in some of the bigger levels that it's loading in. So you just got to wait for that. So no one had done PlayStation at the time. I was in between houses. I was like living at my parents' house at the time before I moved here, and I had my PlayStation 4. I had Red Faction, and like I said to you earlier, I don't remember how I found out about them, but I did, and that's when I was watching Surreal doing Pure Faction runs, and I said, you know what? Fuck it, let's give it a crack. And so I would record it with that, and then I would edit it on my really shitty Lenovo laptop.
Had you ever done any speed running of games of any type before?
No, Red Faction was the first one. Red Faction was so before then I was playing a game called Paragon, which shut down. And I was playing Smite with a couple of friends. You were playing League, right? So I was playing Paragon and Smite. But I just wasn't vibing, and I'm not really a multiplayer person overall. Like I dabbled in a couple of games, but overall I prefer playing single player and having fun that way. And so Red Faction is like my home game. That was my childhood game from like all the way back in 2001. So when it came full circle to 2018, 2019, I was like, fuck it, this makes sense right now. So I grinded into it. And I think I couldn't do any of the cool things on PlayStation that everyone else was doing, apart from one trick, and it was Natalie's force field skip. I could do that in maintenance. Yes. And because even though save loading is a pain in the arse in the PlayStation, it was still faster than walking around the map to hit the button and turn the force field off. So I did that. And then Rafal released, I think, 1.4 Dash Faction. 1.4 or 1.3. And I decided to try testing. Because I think I can't remember. I joined the Discord very recently, and I liked the look of it. I liked that he'd said it was more of a single-player helper at the time, because it was more encompassing of the base game rather than which Pure Faction was always about multiplayer, and that was like the big difference at the time. When I got there, anyways, like you said, it was a Pure Faction light when he started, but by the time I got there, it was more helpful to the single player, all that kind of stuff. It stopped the submarine exploding completely. You didn't need to worry about that anymore. Whereas on Pure Faction, you still had to change console commands and things, so that was a big part of it. And so I got to speedrunning that, and that's when he always walked off. He doesn't care.
No, I think he went to pee or something.
Oh Jesus, he can hear me. It's fine. But that was like the big thing for me was my first computer speedrun, because like I did the PlayStation. I think I did like 4 PlayStation runs, and Homard because being a segmented runner, he very politely offered to cut out all the loads so we could see what it might look like if it was a computer run instead. And that was very cool of him, and I really appreciate that at the time, because it took like 4 minutes out of the run, whereas loads on the PC is like a minute and a half most, maybe, depending on how many times you save load, whatever. PC is like 4 to 6 minutes. It's ridiculous. PS2, sorry, PS4. Yeah, and then yeah. And it was around this time that you were working. So when I was testing Dash Faction, you were working on the Pure Faction segmented run, the impossible one, and you just finished the door. I got my world record on PlayStation in November or December 2019. And then in 2018, Dash Faction, I'm now running that on the PC. And that's where the fun, I guess you could argue, begins for Red Faction. That's where it all changes, right? Because it was on that point that you put up a bounty to help speed up the game, because we have, even to this day, we have sections where it is still hold W. It's very uneventful. You're about to see it right now in the video, the most uneventful point in the entire game. And at that point, it's like, what can we do? There's got to be things that can speed this game up.
So thank you for coming back, Duane, because I was just going to ask you. I was just going to go into the bounty that Intharth just referenced, and then Hotshot, and that's... I mean, that kind of brings us up to modern day. Was there anything you wanted to say on up to now before I do that?
I wanted to say, let's keep the stories coming.
Yes.
I got you covered. So if you want to talk about the bounty, and then I can talk about Dash Faction after that.
Okay, so this bounty. So, yeah. So the elevator in Comm Center, like it's really long. It's really boring. It would be really great if we could skip it. That's what we thought back then. I had established that we could like kinda get through the ceiling of the door frame if you were really quick and pressing the button.
Right. That's like a. No, I just wanted to reference real quick. We knew that was possible because we did it in Pure Faction. We did it at L3S3.
Yeah, exactly. And so we were trying to apply that same skip, and it wouldn't work. You kept getting pushed back into the map. And I was like, what the hell? Like this. If only we could do this. If only we could do this, we could save a huge amount of time. Because I had done the rest of the skip. I knew that the rest of it was possible. I knew we could save like 2 minutes. All we had to do was get out of... Wow, Duane, you just like... Wow.
Oh, man, just working on a remote internet tab.
This is what happens when okay, so I can't shop on Amazon while we're doing this. All right,
Jesus.
Lesson learned.
So we have learned his attention span is bad. Got it.
So, okay, all right. So I had done the rest of it. I knew that the rest of it was possible. We just had to get out of that fucking door frame. And so I had put out a bounty. I said, you know, if somebody can get us a way to reliably get out of this door frame, then what was the bounty I put up? I think it was like $30, $40.
I can't remember. It wasn't too much, but yeah.
About $30.
Yeah, there you go. 30 Canadian bucks. So, you know, it's like $5.
So like $25.
I won't bother converting it to British. I'm sorry.
No. But anyway, yeah. So I put up this bounty, and I was like, hey, someone get us a way to get out of this door frame, please. I didn't think it was possible, to be frank.
No.
Then Hotshot comes into the game. I can't remember what he was working on before that, but he came into the game. He was like, "Hey guys, I see your bounty, and I'm just going to start experimenting." So he finds the current out of bounds skip that we use for like half the run now, basically by accident.
He was prioritizing the door, and he just happened to find all the other stuff.
Yeah, he like basically accidentally found this stuff and was nice enough to share it. And then
I have to interrupt. Was Hotshot the one that it was in one of our YouTube videos that someone in the comments was saying like, "Hey, I can get out of bounds from the elevator"?
No, that wasn't Hotshot. That was actually funny story. The person who replied to your original commentary video with that about docking center or the docking.
Oh yeah.
Commented on our one about Grant.
Yes, when we did our commentary, like, 2 months ago, something like that, for Grant's run, that same person commented on that video and was like, hey, this was me.
Kind of makes me feel like he watches all the commentaries, which is pretty cool.
There are a bunch of people who watch all our commentaries, and that is
I like that.
cool.
Yeah. Side note, none of this stuff would be possible without, like, people outside of ourselves, which goes back to, like, what I'm saying about how I like speedrunning, at least for me, made a single-player experience a social experience.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. And like the community building that comes from speedrunning is just awesome. And I mean, you know, just to go back to what I was talking about, because it's the same thing. It's, you know, the community building. Hotshot was able to come in. I mean, yes, there was a bounty, but like he was clearly interested anyway. Like he wasn't just doing it for like the
$30. Like, oh yeah, I'm hungry. I gotta pay rent. I better get a bounty in this fucking video game.
That's the other thing. He was interested because like he it's not just Red Faction. He did it for Red Faction 2. He experimented with Red Faction Guerrilla. He experimented with Red Faction Armageddon.
Has not learned his lesson.
All 4 games technically benefited from Hotshot finding that bounty post.
Yes, they did. Also, Duane, negative reinforcement.
I can't open up a window. I have to just be here. I have to be present. I can't distract myself.
Anyway, yeah, so he collects on that bounty.
Watch the video.
However much money it was, I think it was $30. I send him
Yeah.
that, and then we have a way out of Com Tower. We also, like I said, accidentally have the out of bounds skips that we use for the rest of the game now. And
Yeah.
you know, of all of the glitch hunters that have contributed to stuff in this game, Hotshot, particularly Hotshot in like that 2-week period, found
On
the
everything.
most impactful skips that have been found in this game over the 23-year lifespan of the game.
And like, so that to sort of pivot back into like the timeline of events a little bit, if Hotshot hadn't done that, things wouldn't have progressed nearly as quickly as they have. Like, you wouldn't have me, you wouldn't have Cinny, you wouldn't have Gron, all that sort of stuff. But like, so the timing of that is he finds this Com Tower skip, which is huge and was never used. I think Surreal got it in 1 run, Grant's got it in 2. No one else does it. We cannot do it. We hate it, right? That's basically how it goes right now. But when Hotshot he found that if you save load through the corners, you could just walk out, just chill, and just leave. And then it kind of, a timeline of events is Hotshot would find one of the skips. Goober, Homer, Daniel, they would all experiment with all this. And then Surreal would start testing them in Pure Faction, trying to get them in an easy RTA run. And I don't think he did any of the save load out of bounds himself, but I think he tried Com Tower, and that's really the focus of that. I was very against the out of bounds originally with Dash Faction because I couldn't work it out. And then Hotshot says, oh, by the way, it's easier if you're at max frames per second. We were all running at 60 FPS because all we knew at the time was we want to beat the submarine clip. I'm getting there, all right? Chill. I just wanted to beat the submarine skip, so it was 60 frames. So he said put it to 240, so blah, blah, blah. And then Goober's sort of trying to wrap up his 7-minute run. He's a little demotivated, but he's motivated again because the Com Tower skips in, so he's carrying on with that. And then after the final Christmas Day edit of the geothermal door, we found an out of bounds in geothermal right beside the door. Yeah. We just clipped through it in 3 seconds. Goodbye.
Yeah, I had not released that run.
Yeah.
What's that, Duane?
My was totally just related to whenever I hear the term 60 frames per second. I get it.
Well, no,
I thought you were saying you were bored, man.
No, that was me going like 60 FPS.
Speeding up, my dude.
We were on 60 FPS back then too, because in the Pure Faction world, cutscenes took longer if you had a higher frame rate. Dash Faction fixed that, so we didn't need to be on 60 FPS anymore, but everybody was just so used to it.
And I guess technically I was playing at 60 FPS for my run because I had to, because that was back in the day when I was using Fraps, and you had to record at the same frame rate the game was running. You couldn't like do like nowadays with OBS and Magic. Like back then it was like, oh, if Fraps is recording at 60, your game's running at 60.
And the other thing was the submarine. It had to be at a specific frame rate. So we just weren't changing the frame rate. We had no idea. So Hotshot says, "Oh yeah, I was running it at the max 240 frames, and it's super easy." And like I said, I was against them at first. Once I upped the frame rate, I found the way out, right? And from there, it sort of descended into what it is today, you know. And like so, yeah, the out of bounds of the geothermal skip, I guess, demotivated Goober to finish putting together that segmented run because he got the Com Tower.
It was rough. I was up to nearly the end of the run.
You were at Merc Center, right?
Yes, yeah. I was up to the last 2 levels of the run, and then Hotshot, Bounty, all that kind of stuff, finds all of these cool skips, and I'm just left there like, okay, I probably got a week, 2 weeks left to do this segmented run that I really want to do, but it's never going to be as fast as it could be, because like I had been along the way for both segmented runs that I did, I had been like glitch hunting as I went to try to find as many cool things as I could to use them in the run so that I didn't need to go back, because Red Faction's not like Half-Life where you can go back and like splice in things along the way. Like if you don't get it as you're going, you're not getting it in your segmented run. And so I was like near the end of the run, and then all these new skips get found, and I'm like, man, I really don't want to go back and record like almost the entire run, but it's also not going to be as fast as it could be anymore. And I've got a really like hellish 2 levels ahead of me that I don't want to do. And I really don't want to do them knowing that they're slower than they could be.
I would say, like, along these lines, once so much new tech was found, as far as like, I don't want to say movement, but like out of bounds tech, routing, and the stuff that required like mechanical manipulation just to navigate the game space, the idea of playing it on impossible, at least for me, became less appealing. Because the reason that I went for impossible right away was because I was like, oh, like I want to have a reason to do this. I need like a challenge to overcome, other than just the time, other than just like, oh, trying to be fast. So once these new tricks, I mean, because going out of bounds and like not locking up or not missing an out of bounds jump, that's the same thing as like, oh, I have to turn this corner and shoot this guy real fast. It's an input thing, like it's a skill input issue. And so once there was enough of that in the easy runs, it was like, fuck, impossible. Like you could do now it's like, yeah, you could do an impossible run and just tack on even more, but it made easy interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it made impossible more trivial in that sense for you, right?
The only difference for impossible versus easy now, like if you're going any percent segmented, quick as you can get, everything on the table, no restrictions, no whatever. Like the only notable differences between easy and impossible are there are a handful of very, very, very specific sections where if you're not extremely careful, guards will just insta-give you. Other than that, it's basically the same thing. And those are very, very few and far between.
It kind of pivots back a little bit to the differences. Like when I asked you, did you ever consider easy? It's like you wanted the challenge, right? You wanted to go for the hardest. You wanted to build on that and it to be fun and to be inclusive. And nowadays, like easy and impossible, it is just a case of how quickly can you save load? How quickly can you dodge bullet fire?
And like impossible would be harder than easy.
It's still hard. Oh, it's still harder.
But they both, like the floor has been raised so much.
Yeah. And
the easy is no longer a hold W simulator.
And honestly, that was like
even on inbounds, it's not a hold W simulator anymore. There's enough tech now, even in inbounds,
right?
that it's I mean, it's more of a hold W simulator than any percent, but it's not as much as it was.
And that's kind of where the first sort of divide came, I think, for Red Faction speedrunning. Is people who had been used to Pure Faction for so long were like, I want to do these out of bounds because it's such a friendly, casual speedrun, and I don't want to jeopardize that. I like my casual, beginner-friendly, just having fun speedrun. And it's like, you've got the people like me who were like, yeah, but we want to go faster. and that was like the timeline of events. So I had finished. I'd called it quits on the 40. Was it 44-14? I called it quits around there, and that had introduced all the out of bounds we knew up to that point, except for the comm tower because I fucking could not do it. Couldn't get it done. But like it was like the Asir out of bounds right here, right at that corner, the Asir going out there, all that kind of stuff. It included skipping maintenance, like jumping down to that Asir. It included the geothermal door, which again, I'm so sorry about 2019. But like progressively, I called it quits at 40-14. I says 44-14. I said, that's it. I'm done. I've done what I can do. Someone else can take the reins from here. And I took a break. I went and found other indie games like Astray, for example, and had fun with those. And then Cine shows up and he starts trading with Etnias. They didn't go too far. They got into the 43. And then that's when Grant came along. And there was a bit of conversations. There was a couple of new things discovered, like the tram skip where we clip into the underneath of the tram, Duane, and then we jump to the other one, which 5 seconds. But anyways, they had a bit of back and forth in the Discord, and like they didn't think sub 43 would be possible. They didn't think sub 42 would be possible. And Grant, as I said, never underestimate the autistic fucking power of speedrunners. That's a quote from Carl Jobs. You can take that to the bank. he kept at it. He kept at it, and he kept at it. And then he got under 42, he got under 41, and now he's under 40, but he's under 40. And like, that sort of takes us, like, we can look at the leaderboard real quick, like here, like, here's the, like, we can see with Pure Faction, like, here's the timeline events, here's Magnod's and Nia Killer. So, right, and that's a long, long time ago, right? And like, over the period of time that this is all happening, you guys were doing your segmented things over here. And like, oh, wait, yeah. So again, you guys haven't touched segmented for a long time, and Duane just hasn't come back. You can still do an inbounds one, Duane.
That's true. Duane is the godfather of Red Faction speedrunning.
Yeah.
The person who, without which none of this would have happened. And we need to get some more Duane percent runs going here.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, we do.
It's just overall, like, I still reap what I sought from playing this game, which is being able to like talk to people, talk about games, talk about life, and whatever. I don't need to I don't need to play it anymore.
No, I mean, dude, I agree with you. It's awesome.
And I just wanted to say, like, real quick, like, here's impossible any percent. It's still longer, it's still harder, but like you said, it's trivialized almost because it's all the tech means you can skip a lot of the more difficult sections without risking too much.
Yeah, I mean, impossible RTA compared to easy RTA is basically just more annoying. Like, it's not like the tech is not substantially different.
It's petty.
Yeah, the tech is not substantially different now. It's just more annoying in certain areas. So
and and like so if we look at it for Pure Faction, for Dash Faction, I sort of ended in this area here. I sort of stopped running here. I did come back 2 years ago, and updated my time because there was a couple of additional things that I liked the look of, and I wanted to just, modernize my run a bit.
Yeah.
And like, from there, I mean, Grant has had this community by the throat. Like, we can't top Grant. I mean, it is firmly his game to lose now.
Yeah. Duane, Grant's going to comment on your expression there.
Nope.
No, that was me just being like, and Grant comes in and shits over everybody.
No.
It's a compliment. It's a compliment.
But like, I'll put Grant's run on for background now. But
like, fuck it, America, fuck yeah, Grant, woo.
And like, so that's like the timeline of events. So like, you've got Magnals, who didn't really know much, Neo Killer, who didn't really know much, to you and Goober coming along, and then Surreal, and we don't know who found the flamethrower frame strategy. We don't know who found the first canyon tunnel. We just knew they were there because they were in the first runs, and we didn't know that MedLabs was straightforward for you in your case, but we worked it out afterwards.
Yes, that's true, and everyone except Duane now knows the
correct way to run MedLabs.
Hey,
and then, like,
you know what? Sometimes she goes, sometimes she doesn't go.
And you never went.
We couldn't get through. Come on, we could not get through our inaugural podcast without
riffing on MedLabs. Yeah,
from MedLabs.
Just going the wrong way, just twice. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
It's fine.
But like, and then so you've got the people in Pure Faction doing runs, the water boost, which was really solid in Pure Faction RTA, because that skipped the walking up this chasm specifically, and then the one in Zoo, which, correct me if I'm wrong, some people couldn't do on their hardware.
Yeah, I couldn't for some reason. The water boost in Zoo wouldn't work for me. And
right.
I still, to this day, have no idea why. It worked on my laptop, but not my desktop. It must be a hardware issue. I don't know what caused it. But the one in Mines worked fine in both places. But the one in Zoo only worked on my laptop. And
that's so weird.
No clue why. Absolutely no clue why.
And that's like, so we kind of glossed over like volition and blowing holes in walls, but like the big selling point of Red Faction, as we all know, is Geomod, is blowing shit up in real time. And as time went on, more and more of these blowing holes in walls became apparent that it was good for skipping sections. So like it's like you said about inbounds, it's not entirely hold W anymore because there's so many geomod strategies that we have now that we have good tech for even an inbound run, because when you blow a hole in the wall, still inbounds because the room is still in there. And
and I do think that it's interesting, and it's like, I know I made this comment in the commentary that we did on Grant's run, but like it is interesting how important rocket economy is now, because there are so many geoskips, and you need to make sure that you have enough rockets to be able to do them, because otherwise, I mean, you're going to lose a lot more time by not doing the geoskips than you're going to spend trying to find the rockets.
Right. Back in the day, you just all you had to do worry about was the canyon. You had rockets, you could do skips. Back in the day, all you had to really worry about is making sure you had enough for the canyon skip. Now it's like, well, can I get out of L3S3? Can I or sorry, L3S1? Can I do the first one? Can I do the little robot? Can I do geothermal? All these different places where, and that's another thing as well. In pure faction runs with geothermal, you would do rockets in different parts of geothermal to skip walking into all the different rooms, so you could jump in and out rather than like it's only really water and lava, but you would do a rocket in there to jump in, jump out rather than walk the whole way around. Now it's just blow a rocket in a wall, walk to the door, and clip out that wall.
Yeah,
and that was the like time save.
Yeah, and the other ones now only get used in inbounds.
Yeah,
I should be wrapping up. What if we are wrapping up, which I think we should?
Yeah, no, we are. We're about.
What's Intharth? What is next? Do you like? What's the next step in RF1 for either you personally or you think the game in general?
I think now that we're under the 40-minute barrier, it would be cool if someone could just refine, whether that's Grant or not Grant. If someone could refine, because Grant's sum of best is actually a 38. Like that's his. Yeah. It's, or at least it's a low 39, but his PB is a 39.58. So there's refinement left to do. It's just we don't know how low the refinement goes. Homard and Grant's segmented runs are under 37, I think. I know that Grant's 35. And so we know there's stuff there. We know there's room left. We just don't know how much room. For me personally, I'm enjoying challenge runs personally right now. I'm having fun. Like the other day, I just did a no save load. I didn't save the entire run. Went without a hitch. I promise. Don't worry about it. No pillars were slammed into at all.
That was a great clip.
Goober, what do you, oh sorry, and go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say like the last things. I there's a few more challenge runs I want to do, but the big thing I want to like say is my crowning achievement of Red Faction, and I can retire from Red Faction technically, is the anthology run. I did all 4 games back to back to back to back, and 6 hours later, and no one's done that. Maybe someone will. I was the first person to do that. That's my personal achievement. But as far as Red Faction goes, I was more than happy to hand the reins off to Gran, and we can see where it goes from there.
Nice. Goober, do you think the only thing standing in the way of like it's going to take another like paradigm shift, like another large discovery, right, to move it forward past like the current sum of bests or the current easy any percents, segmented easies?
You know, the run has reached the point now where there are very few spots where there could be skip, like unless there's some huge either movement tech that we could find, which is unlikely, or there is like some type of sequence break, something like the Half-Life Enormously Warped, something like that, where you could like warp from this level to a level like 8 levels in the future. Short of something like that, we've reached the point We've reached the point now where most of the run, if you get all the skips right, it's walking forward, doing the skips perfect. So like there needs to be some type of skip that allows us to like close the distance. Like the run that you're watching right now, actually exactly where the video is playing. That skip
looks so good.
It is incredible. It is absolutely incredible. But like short of doing that sequence of events slightly cleaner, which I mean you could probably shave off maybe a second, maybe, if you do that like as clean as you possibly could in a segmented run. Short of doing that, like there's no faster way through that section. Like again,
just because of the basics of the level, right? Like there's like if you were to just straight line from A to B, like this, we're getting close to that straight
unless
line.
you can figure out a way to speed up the player or reduce the amount of distance you need to go, it's gonna be tricky.
It kind of pulls you back to the whole W simulator. Now it's not a whole W simulator, but the out of bounds and the geotech has gotten to a point where it's back to just get from A to B. But obviously, just it's a different style of pathing now.
Well, it's not a whole W simulator. It's a whole W while doing a bunch of holy crap ridiculous strats perfectly simulated. And if you do that's all that, like huge. You hold W other than that.
I would have loved if we had grenade launch technology like Half-Life, like Source Engine does. I would love that shit.
Yeah, something like that. Something like
like damage boosting.
Damage boosting. You know, the gauze gun. Just stuff like bee hopping. Like that would allow us to close it. Like if there was bee hopping in Red Faction, like there wasn't.
That would close the skill. That would close the skill. It would raise the ceiling again from, because like you said earlier, Duane, the floor raised. Bee hopping or strafe jumping, whatever you want to do, source, quake, whatever, it would put the ceiling higher again.
It would, like especially stuff like Ancient Riverbed. At the moment, that is just a big long corridor, and like there's not really a quicker way to get from point A to point B. Like even like as the crow flies through that map is not significantly faster than like going the way that we have to go already. So, like, short of finding a way to, like, speed down the canyon, like bee hopping or something like that, which is not likely, we're already going effectively the fastest we can. Unless we could, like, figure out a way to get, like, one of the flying vehicles, the Azir.
Here's the geothermal door skip.
But, yeah. So, no,
you know, and fucking Hendrix his words echo every time something new gets found in the game. We still always think to ourselves, if only we had been. If
only you'd been faster.
Yes, and I guess to bring that back full circle, because we are wrapping up here. Hendrick's line, "If only you'd been faster," that he says in the docking bay, which we skip in the any percent run. But anyway, that he says in the docking bay is obviously the name of our speedrun server. There's a link to that in the bottom left-hand corner of this video if you're watching it. There will also be one down in the description. We don't actually speedrun Red Faction there. We speedrun Red Faction on another server. We speedrun a lot of other games there, and the server is obviously named after Hendrix's famous line in that area. And I think unless we have anything that we want to go over that I've missed, I think we are just about at the end of our inaugural podcast, and we don't. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go finish. Sorry, finish.
Okay, I was just going to say, we don't know what the future will bring for this project, but you will know when we know. And other than that, I hope you've enjoyed the chat, and I'll give Intharth and Duane a chance to say some closing thoughts if you'd like. But other than that, I'm Goober, and I hope you enjoyed.
I'm Duane.
Go
Intharth,
go for it. Hit it. I was gonna like just quickly skip through the video and just highlight some of the insane tech that has been found since, because this is Grant's run, so this is the perfection, right? Like this is
take like 30 seconds or something and do it.
Like this one coming up, like we no longer have to pick up Griffin anymore because there's an out of bounds in here where we can just walk out this corner. Like he's shooting the wall so we can see it better because it's a really shit like visual. But yeah, so we can skip that. There's
actually, I'll also I tell you what, to save you the trouble of having to go through all of this, we already did a commentary for that video.
Oh yeah.
So
I was just highlighting while you were talking. I was just gonna skip through it.
I will actually, in the description of this video, if you're watching this on YouTube, down in the description of this video, I will link to the commentary that we did on Grant's current, the first ever sub 40 any percent run in Red Faction. I will link to that down in the description if you're curious to watch like our full, you could talk for like an hour and 20 or something like that about that run a couple of months ago.
My closing thoughts have to go with just like why I did the few speed runs that I did, and it comes down to like, I don't like the word community, but it's not because I don't like what it stands for. I like being able to meet people and hang out and talk about stuff and have a common goal and feel good when it's achieved. And that's what speedrunning did for me. And until the little bit of toe dipping I did into speedrunning stops giving me that same satisfaction, I'm fine just watching what other people do with the games, because that's like, I don't care about what I've done. I care about what's being done and being able to watch it and interact with those who are doing it.
I hear you, but I do just have to say, we care about the foundation that you laid, Duane.
Yes, we do.
As the godfather of Red Faction speedrunning, we very much care about the foundation that you laid for generations of speedrunners to come.
You know, if it wasn't for me, well, if it wasn't for Magnout and Neo Killer, and then you guys helping me out, and then like, you know, like Nick like helping me get like a better computer, and then like, you know, and then like Intharth, you know, being around to, you know, push you to do other stuff, and us all be like, you know. So if it wasn't for me and all those other people,
I have a question for you, Duane, real quick.
Yes.
Do you think, because like you said, with Impossible, it's about the challenge, right?
Yeah.
Do you think with all the tech, if you had time to sit and do a segmented run, would you do a new Impossible segmented run with all the out of bounds?
If I was, how long has it been since I did this? Yeah. So if I
8
was
years.
if I was in my 20s and felt like I had the time again, I think it would be kind of fun. And certainly if I was let's say it's 2024, but 2014 Duane stumbles upon this community, the first thing I do would be an Impossible segmented run, even with all the tech. Yeah, I'd be like, oh, like, yeah, I just have to do it the hardest one.
But now you're just like, nope.
Oh, like, yeah, personally, I have no desire now, but like if the same me from then were to find the game now, yeah, I'd do the Impossible segmented, just because it's what would take the most time and thus force the most interaction with other people.
I think there's
after you spend that amount of time in it as well, you know, there is a certain amount of satisfaction that comes from watching the end product, and that sense of satisfaction, at least for me, is greatly amplified with how difficult it was to do. Like, if I could do a segmented run and it took me 2 days to do, I would feel way less proud of that than if it was something that I worked on for like 3 months.
Yep.
And like, that's I totally understand, but I wanted to ask because we definitely need more Duane % runs. We got to sit you down. We got to do some runs.
Oh, dude, we can do Duane % runs. But listen, I want to.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Duane % will happen.
To segue this very quickly, because we're about to wrap up, into future episodes of this podcast, should we choose to do them. They won't all be focused on Red Faction. And I, for one, look forward to the opportunity. I'm putting you on the spot here, Duane. I, for one, look forward to the opportunity to experience Duane % runs in other games.
Oh yes.
Hey, as long as you can guarantee me they won't take more than like 45 minutes to an hour, I'll do whatever. I'll do it.
I think if we so like the game that we're most proud of in the server is Astray, and I think we could coach you through that in under 30 minutes.
Sounds good. I love yeah. You just tell me what to do, and I'll yell and be like, "Wait, left from where? No, what do you mean?"
That's like something funny. We so during the marathon we recently did with Echo, he did Red Faction 1 inbounds at a marathon. They had a lot of time to kill, and we didn't know what to do initially. We coached Echo through the entirety of Kava in that marathon.
It was basically a Duane % run of Kava featuring Echo.
Yeah. But he still did it faster than Medlabs twice. But anyways, it's
at that, I'm gonna call it there. Thank you to the masses, whoever watches this video, for watching our inaugural podcast for the If Only You've Been Faster Discord server, which ironically this time focused on a game that's not even hosted in that server. But anyway, thank you very much for watching our inaugural podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. We will keep you posted on future plans for this. Thank you, Duane. Thank you, Intharth, for co-hosting this fun-filled evening.
Of course.
And yeah, I'll call it there. If you guys want to give a shout out, go for it, and then I'll shut it off.
Shout outs to the Red Faction community. Shout outs to Duane for being the godfather of the Red Faction speedrun community. Shout out to everyone who came before us, who helped find all these things that make this game fun to speedrun and made it a topic of interest to talk about, right? Like, that's the big takeaway from this inaugural podcast. But yeah, shout outs to just the whole Red Faction community, mappers, modders, speedrunners, multiplayer, it's a community, and it's a integrated community of everyone starting to connect, and it's a huge boon to the community. And that's just what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I look forward to if this continues, like talking about speedrunning in general. And I also look forward to getting all of your mother's phone numbers. So please slide those into my DMs.
What the heck?
That is perfect way to end. Thank you, Intharth. Thank you, slightly less Duane. And we will call it there. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.